to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, Vanessa Hurst is back on this episode, and there are three main topics that we discuss and break down, and I'm gonna mention these here in order. The first thing that we talk about for roughly 30 minutes has to do with the ESSER funds, where the federal government, again, is providing all of this money for K-12 schools, elementary and secondary schools, which is what ESSER stands for. And just the sheer quantity of that money, and then where they claim it's going, and where they, what they claim they're spending it on. And then we get into, within that same first half hour here, Raptor Technologies. And Raptor Technologies is something that Vanessa came across, and it has to do with an outside organization based in Texas that claims to be the gold standard, quote unquote, in school security. And so what's happening is these K-12 schools are using their ESSER funds, some of it anyway, to pay outside agencies to then come in and essentially completely redesign the entire school environment around this entire COVID hoax and the entire thing. And it's alarming because, again, the walls are closing in, the barriers and walls are being erected right in front of everyone's eyes. It firmly includes mask wearing, distancing, testing, contact tracing, you name it. So that's the first thing we cover. The second thing we cover is her perspectives on, again, Nelson County, Kentucky, and what's going on both in both of her children's schools. One of her children attends the local high school there, and then two of her other children attend a private school. And again, the differences exist, to say the least, in particular when it comes to curriculum. Unfortunately, they're mask wearing in both, but it's the curriculum difference and the rigor that is really the stark difference between the two. Because again, the public school has no curriculum, by and large, that anybody can detect, and they are slowly turning into a communistic camp. And then, of course, the private school is different. The rigor is there, the reading is there, the writing is there, it's all there, which is great. I wish they weren't doing the mask wearing, as we all know, but I understand that it's difficult for a lot of families. I fully understand that. And then finally, as a result of what has gone on within their school district and the vigilance that Vanessa Hurst and her friends and community members and parents and ex-teachers have had in that area, finally it ended up garnering the attention of the local news media within Louisville, Kentucky. And then one of their major news outlet investigators came down, did an entire story on what's going on down there for the most part. And that's I include that entire 6-minute audio clip in this episode, and it really is interesting because, again, the superintendent doesn't want to answer questions. The superintendent wants nothing to do with any interference on his plan to, again, completely redesign these school buildings, consolidate them down into smaller school buildings, combine middle schools and high schools all together, and then, of course, continue with the complete absence of any curriculum whatsoever, while, again, literally turning it into a work camp where high school students have to work multiple hours a week in order to meet some graduation requirement that the district has decided to set forth. So give this episode a listen. It's a long one, but believe me, it's worth it from beginning to end. Let's start with the Dartmouth thing real quick. Let's revisit that. How did you get a hold of that Dartmouth University picture? And give us some background on that.
Yeah. My great aunt has a daughter whose friend sends their child to Dartmouth. And the daughter, my cousin, posted that, and then my aunt reposted it. And so I asked her where she got it, and she went straight to the source and took a screenshot and sent it to me. They posted it. It was all posted on Facebook. I'm surprised it hadn't been taken down, but yeah, it was all there. And my aunt, of course, is a former educator, and she's absolutely just horrified with the things that are going on. She's in her 80s, but she's very active on social media, and very outspoken. She's been put in Facebook jail, I can't tell you how many times, for just being honest. Okay, so my aunt posted, "The insanity continues. Dartmouth, $60,000 a year, has a 97% vaccination rate. Evidently, that is not good enough. The students will be tested weekly. Positive cases will be sent to a lovely facility that has been set up in the indoor tennis building. They will reside in individual cage-like structures and be offered group showers. Illegal aliens are given a hotel room while these future leaders will be confined in what looks like CHICOM re-education camp. What is astounding is there seems to be no pushback from the apparently quote-unquote woke students or their parents. No doubt this will become a model for colleges all over the country. If you think the government isn't going to eventually do something like this, you aren't paying attention. So then I asked her where she got that, and then she posted a screenshot of the original post, which says, Dartmouth has lost its mind. With a 97% vaccination rate, they will still be testing every student weekly and have set up a facility in the indoor tennis center for students who test positive. Group showers. I'm so disappointed in the leadership. And that was from the original parent of a student at Dartmouth.
Yeah, the group showers, they're not even hiding the imagery of it.
That's astounding. I'm really shocked by the group shower thing. Why? I mean, what's the purpose?
Yeah.
Are we trying to stop the spread of COVID, or are we, breaking people down mentally?
I just came across a video just this morning, as a matter of fact. In Germany, in their public schools, they're making their students swab themselves, cram those COVID tests up their noses on a day in and day out basis. And then test themselves right then and there on the spot.
People don't behave themselves, and they're not going, if they want to stay in school or they want to continue to do what they're doing, they're going to barely get the inside of their nose. They're going to test negative every time.
Yeah, true.
So, very, very well thought out there, Germany.
That database that I shared with you earlier.
The ESSER.
Right, yeah, the ESSER stuff. That database has been deleted.
Really?
Yeah, it's gone. For K-12 education, which again, it was remarkably easy to see which districts were spending how much money, and it was just showing again money amounts. But what it wasn't showing, which is what this other document is showing. One of them is the National Conference for State Legislators, which is ncsl.org. And at the top, of course, it says Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund Tracker. And you scroll down, and then in the search box, you can type in your state. And what's interesting is that, again, everything is in alphabetical order, all of the states, but it's very difficult now to get to a specific school district, to actually see what's being spent and how it's being spent at the very local level. On the right-hand side, it has ESSER 1, ESSER 2 breakdown, but it doesn't show ESSER 3, which is interesting, because there is an ESSER 3, and ESSER 3 is the largest amount of money out of all of it. So not only, they're not hiding the money amount, but they are hiding what they're doing it for, which I suppose leads into the Raptor Technologies stuff. So describe how you came across the Raptor Technologies, because again, this website is frightening.
I was looking up formulas for how ESSER funds are allotted, because I had noticed that our county specifically was much lower than surrounding counties for ESSER funds. Still really not clear how that is dispersed and why certain counties have more. The only thing I can come up with as far as that is concerned is that I don't think our county is putting as much into the safety aspect of the pandemic. Or kind of touch on that, our superintendent does not believe in virtual learning. He talks about it all the time, but fundamentally he wants kids in classrooms, which you would think is a great thing, unless you knew a little bit about this superintendent, who is absolutely frightening with the amount of indoctrination that goes on in our schools. So anyway, looking up formulas for how ESSER funds are allotted, I came across Raptor Technologies, which is a school, allegedly the gold standard in school safety. So they had started out as a company that that would issue or use technology to issue visitor passes and keep track of visitors that are in schools and leaving schools. If you've ever been to a school that uses this sort of technology, you'll go in, they'll take your picture, you'll get issued a sticker with your picture on it, and you're logged in as a visitor. And before you leave, you have to log out, and that's how they track visitors. And that's basically what this Raptor Technologies does. They also provide emergency management plans for schools that are tailored to specific schools. They'll come in and help develop an emergency management plan. That's also something that gets done through site-based council or approved through site-based council, which is what I served on. So evidently, with, I guess, less students being in classrooms, the Raptor Technologies has had to evolve, and now they're issuing guidance for as how to get ESSER funding and how to spend it to protect students from whatever to do with the pandemic, to do with COVID. So they're now they have a description. The U.S. government has set aside over $190 billion in stimulus funding for schools in the form of federal COVID-19 relief funds. 3 bills, CARES, CRRSA, and ARP, include the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER, that targets K-12 school districts. The ARP ESSER Fund has set aside $122 billion in available funds to help schools safely reopen. The funding allows for expenses that reduce the pandemic's impacts on students through the purchase of health screening tools, funds for learning loss, and additional resources to address the mental well-being of students impacted by the isolation of lockdown. ARP also provides districts with a large number of Title I schools priority access to this funding. So then they go on to how they can help access ESSER funds and maximize the funding for secure campuses.
Yeah, and I believe it was this website where they even had a picture. I know I'm not imagining this because I did see it, but it was a cartoon picture of a school with a wall around it and then arrows around the building as to how people are allowed to come in and leave, and that they'll even do that. That they'll, I mean, it looked, I mean, it just at face value, again, it looked completely like a communistic camp. And it's basically saying, we'll only let you in if you stand here and you have a mask and you do this and you do that. And it's just the permanent nature of this Raptor Technologies that is really disturbing. Not to mention, and this is a big red flag, and I have a little experience with this, with groups like this, but it's very difficult to get a hold of them unless you give them all of your personal information and you tell them your first and last name and then what school you work in.
Yeah.
And then only then will they email you back, assuming that you give them, accurate information. And then they assume that you're a big fish, and it's time to get you on the hook now. I just very quickly, I did that once, just to sort of, stretch my investigative muscles a little bit with a social emotional learning program that existed. And on their own website, they wouldn't tell anybody how much it cost. You had to actually email them and get a hold of them and whatever. So I created this fake email account, and I emailed them. And I said, my name is so-and-so. I work in a school district. I'm curious as to what this would cost and the time that it would take to implement. But I've noticed that the price isn't available on your website. Is there any more information you can give me? And then they said, they emailed me back and they said, tell us a little bit about where you live and what school district you're in. And I said, I'd rather not do that right now. I said, I'm just interested in sort of gathering some information to maybe share with my colleagues and blah, blah, blah. And they wouldn't let it go because, again, they saw dollar signs. And they thought to themselves, well, this person has some money. And if they work for a school, they've certainly got plenty of it to spend. So let's just give them this information. And they did. I mean, they just finally handed it over to me, and it was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to implement this social emotional learning program and these packets and all this other nonsense. It was alarming, but it clearly seems like this Raptor Technologies is doing just that. And again, the further down this website you go, of course, they've got it broken down by 4 chapters. And it says, Your Guide to ESSER Funds. And then, again, they have this booklet, apparently, where you can have them send you more information. But, again, every picture is so disturbing. It's children in masks. It's children being tested or having their temperature taken. It's individuals talking to each other with masks. They also have, again, as you said, this emergency management and response section. And I'm sure you're looking right at it, but it says, again, with the growing concern of increased violence as schools reopen, staff need a reliable way to request the right level of response for any incident. And it's a picture of 2 security guards approaching this woman. I mean, it's really weird.
Yeah.
You know, I know the word weird's not scientific in any way, but it's just weird. And then again, they have social distancing and hygiene with lines on the concrete, transportation. They want people to volunteer. Again, people have got to understand that this is where this money is going. It's going into this communistic program to be implemented in people's schools permanently. I mean, it doesn't seem like this is one of those things that shows up and then just goes away with time.
Personally, I don't think Raptor Technologies is in this to implement anything communistic. I think they're in this to dip their hand in and make a little money off of this. They absolutely do not care about mental health. And, I mean, why would they be spending this multi-$1,000 program, for mental health and safety of students, if that was the case? Why are you trying to dip your hand in the pot here? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity for them, like you said, to just make a ton of money at from the federal government, and then it gets laundered through the school, and then the school finds them, and then the money kicks up to Raptor Technologies, and then Raptor comes back, and then it just becomes this permanent relationship, apparently, that everybody seems to be fine with.
So you see a place like Raptor Technologies. That in our last episode, we talked about the vendor list for schools and what they spend their money on. And you were talking about all these companies that were all over the United States. Why are we paying money to Texas? Why are we paying money to California? Well, it's because these companies, like Raptor Technologies, is from Houston, Texas. So we're writing a check. If our school is writing a check for safety, to come up with some kind of safety protocol or emergency management, then we're going to write Texas Raptor Technologies, and that's where that money's going. That's where tax dollars are being spent.
And they seem to be recruiting just about everybody. I mean, it says here by role: superintendent, principal, safety, law enforcement, operations, technology, and volunteer coordinator. So they need somebody from the outside to show up to the inside to then coordinate everything that's going on, and then apparently get as many people involved in your local area as humanly possible to buy into this nonsense. It's terrible.
And they even have they have podcasts about this stuff. They have all sorts of different podcasts, webinars. It's all over. It's videos, blog. There's a blog. You learn all about this. But it just seems like they started out with the visitor safety stuff, and they just jumped on the bandwagon with COVID. Hey, we have a money-making opportunity here.
I just came across this too. If you go down further on that page, again, raptortech.com, all listed right here. Metro Nashville Public Schools, KA+, whatever the hell that is, Gwinnett County Public Schools, Fresno Unified School District, El Paso Independent School District, Fort Worth Independent School District, Orange County Public Schools. I mean, they're certainly doing whatever they can. Polk County Schools, there you go. If that's Polk County, Florida, largest county in Florida. mean, they're Virginia Beach. They're doing whatever they can, in San Antonio. They're doing whatever they can to say, hey, look, all these schools are doing it, so you should do it too.
And if you look at their business, go to their business partners, partners and awards, it's under the About Us. You have Clever houses all the different computer games and things.
That's right. Yeah, that's used. Yeah, you remember. And that's like elementary school stuff too, isn't it?
Yeah. So last year, when nobody knew how to teach at a distance, they were relying heavily on Clever for kids to play educational computer games, which is a whole other huge story, or get into that. But yeah, that's also listed on their partners.
Everybody's getting a piece of the pie.
Seems so. The only thing missing on here is the Pan Zuckerberg initiative.
Yeah, no kidding. But they're probably in there somewhere.
Just keep digging.
Yeah, again, the business of the ESSER funds, which again stands for the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. I find it very interesting, again, that they are honing in on the fact that they seem to believe that all of these students lost an entire year of learning, and that has to be made up, and that the only way to make that up is for the schools to get cash. I mean, it makes no sense. It's like saying, oh, your child's car's broken down, so we need hamburgers. I mean, one thing has nothing to do with the other. I don't know how you throw money at anybody and all of a sudden make up alleged lost learning time.
Okay, so just real quick, I clicked on one of the partners for Raptor Technologies, which was Power School, Powering Brighter Futures.
Right.
One of the first companies that is in partnership that pops up is Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Education. And you scroll on down, you have Magnus Health, which is I think that's one of those health facilities coordinated with St. Magnus Health. Is an innovative way for independent K-12 schools to collect, track, and manage student health information on one online platform. That's not scary at all. Yeah, so all you have to do is just keep clicking the links, keep clicking the sponsors, and you're going to find all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, this is a giant rabbit hole. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
They even have, of course, their success stories. It says, today Raptor is trusted to protect over 35,000 K-12 schools across our nation. And then their lead thing here says, district stopped 7 sex offenders in 1 year from entering campus. It says, previously front desk staff had to review the list each time a visitor checked in, meaning they had no way to effectively check an up-to-date database of sex offender registries. Why do you need Raptor Technologies to do that? It's called the internet.
Or, how about only letting the people see the students on the list? Like, you have to have a list of what people are allowed to have contact with your student in the building, or pick up your child from school. You give a list. All they have to do is access that list that every parent fills out. It should be on file. They should know this. Check an ID, and there you go. If they won't give you their ID, well, maybe they're not supposed to be there.
It really is. It's really creating a connectivity issue here, where everything again is on the internet. Everybody can track everything. Everybody can see everything. It turns the entire school and every single student and person who works in there as this trackable human being. And I don't think that's overstating it. It's pretty crystal clear that certainly seems to be the case. And again, like you said, what school doesn't have an emergency policy for this, that, or the other already in place? They're contractually obligated to. I mean, you can't be a school and not have some emergency policy in place for multiple scenarios.
I think the more hands that are in education, I think the more, or the less privacy each student is going to have. That's for sure. Very concerning when you understand how algorithms track each individual, and you're starting your child with their own individual the interaction with the internet, the earlier you start that, the more they're going to be tracked, the more predictive the algorithms become. And eventually, they're going to be able to predict your child's every move. That's basically where that leads. That's where all these programs and different things, I believe, are going to lead. That's my prediction.
I just came across this too because that ncsl.org site, it's not making it easy for people to find the ESSER 3 money. And again, the ESSER 3 money is the largest amount of money. For example, in Colorado, they're receiving $1,166,328,632. And then it shows ESSER 1, ESSER 2 description on the right-hand side. I'm just going to click on where it says click here. And then it takes you to the Colorado Department of Education. And then on the right-hand side, you have to click on where it says ARP ESSER 3 Fund. And I want to read through this because, again, this is apparently their breakdown as to where the money is going. It says ARP ESSER 3 Fund distribution. The additional ARP ESSER 3 funds will be distributed according to the same process as the ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds, with 90% flowing to local education agencies based on the Title I formulation and 10% reserved for state-level activities. Like the original ESSER dollars, only 0.5% of the total state award may be used for administration activities. Don't know what that is, administration activities. And then it continues with some codes and money and what have you. And then it says allowable uses include, and there's a number of bullet points. It says coordinating preparedness and response efforts with state, local, tribal, and territorial public health departments to prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. This is nuts. We're talking about the common cold/flu here. This is just this is the world's largest money laundering scheme that I've ever seen. The next one says training and professional development on sanitizing and minimizing the spread of infectious diseases. It's not how it works. That's not how the spread of anything works. The next one says purchasing supplies to sanitize and clean the LEA's facilities. The next one, repairing and improving school facilities to reduce risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health hazards. Well, that can be used for anything then. I mean, replacing a toilet, fixing a leaky roof.
Installing a new HVAC system, maybe.
Yeah, that too.
Hypoallergenic filters.
Could be. Improving indoor air quality, which leads into that, which again, that's fine. That's not a problem, but it's evident that these funds are being used to basically rebuild school buildings. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but doing it under this guise of quote-unquote COVID-19 seems awfully nefarious. And this is where it gets even more interesting, because then it cuts into actual instruction. It says addressing the needs of children from low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster care youth. So again, what is the money specifically being used for those people? They don't really answer that. It says developing and implementing procedures and systems to improve the preparedness and response efforts of LEAs. I'm not sure what LEAs stands for.
I looked it up. It's like K-12 education. It is local educational agencies.
Oh wow, okay, that's worse.
Yeah, so that would be your school districts,
health departments,
individual schools, and state educational agencies, SEAs, and LEAs, which are local educational agencies.
Okay. There's 3 more bullet points here. It says planning for or implementing activities during long-term closures, including providing meals to eligible students and providing technology for online learning. I mean, that's fine. Computers, go for it. As long as, of course, those computers aren't tracking the child on a constant basis and making them take pictures of themselves. Purchasing educational technology, including hardware, software, connectivity, assistive technology, and adaptive equipment for students that aids in regular and substantive educational interaction between students and their classroom instructors, including students from low-income families and children with disabilities. And then the last one says providing mental health services and supports, including through the implementation of evidence-based full-service community school and hiring of counselors. I'll tell you something, too, that's interesting. One of the things that I've noticed on countless education job boards are the numbers of counselors that are being asked to be hired within these districts. It's absolutely massive, and the same is true in higher ed. They're consistently looking for people to teach people how to be counselors. It's almost as if these school buildings are purposefully turning themselves into mental and emotional institutions, where,
Right.
again, they're not teaching content like reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're teaching them how to be, quote unquote, well, safe, and healthy.
And all those things are fine and have their place. However, what I think everybody is missing the mark on is what these kids need at this point is stability. That's just what they need. They need stability in their home, and they need stability in their school, if that's where they're going. They need stability. They need to be able to count on something being solid, and they don't have that. That's what's going to cause the lack of counselors, not the lack of being able to express your feelings. It's stability.
It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Be a civil human being and then just leave them alone. But again, for me, at face value, just looking at it, it's just the permanent nature of what they seem to be implementing. Again, with the mask wearing and the glove wearing and the distancing and all of this. And you even said to me earlier in the week that when we were talking about these exemption forms, that they're changing their language now from it not you can bring this up, but you said that they're not using the word social anymore. They're just using the word distancing.
Right. Or physical distancing. Yeah, they're changing the language slowly, or maybe not so slowly, so we don't notice it. But yeah, why change the language? Is it because it's less appealing? Is it because people are tired of hearing it? Or, I'm always hypersensitive to, language trends. And that's something I did notice is it's going from social distancing to physical distancing or just distancing. Just odd.
Yeah, again, for me, it brings in a permanent nature to the language. While they're shifting the language, they're still keeping distancing in place, and they don't seem to be letting up in that whatsoever.
Right.
We discussed this the last time, and I did want you to bring this up if it's all right. Your own children. And what they've been experiencing and what they're how they're learning within their environments, because you have two of your sons who are in a private school. One of your sons is attending the local public high school. Describe if you can again the differences between those two environments and what your sons are reporting back to you, and then how they're being treated and XYZ there.
Well, I'll start with the high school. Within the first week, my son was, going to high school. Everything was okay. Of course, they have to wear a mask 24/7. The only break they get is at lunch, or if they are outside in their health class. Otherwise, it's the entire time. He was given a care form. They call it care form. It's basically a pink slip for having his mask below his nose. Brought it home. Of course, we had to sign it. My husband signed it that he couldn't read it because it's on carbon paper and that he couldn't breathe anyway. Sent it back. No other issues after that. But evidently that they've been passing out these pink slips or care forms left and right. Like, it just doesn't even mean anything for kids with mask violations. And it's so ridiculous because I think it's 4 care forms, and you get an office referral, or 3 care forms, office referral. 4th care form is Horizons Academy, which is the alternative school. So it's kind of ridiculous to think that if my kid lets his mask slip below his nose 4 times, he's going to be sent to alternative school, which is not going to happen in our family, or whatever. We'll pull them out before it gets to that point. But yeah, they've been some of the teachers are really, really strict with the masks. It's interesting. Thomas Nelson is Wes Bradley's baby. He was the first principal there, and so all the things that were implemented throughout the district, as far as some of the language and the things that they do, it started at Thomas Nelson, so it's deeply embedded at that school. You look, on the hallways everywhere. There's, what can I do? Huge letters across the wall. What can I do for my community? And everything's community centered. And then they started the whole concept of, now they're pushing "we is greater than me," which really gets under my skin.
No kidding.
As you can imagine. In fact, during the open house, which they call a house party, or housewarming party, or whatever they called it, they had these pseudo TED Talks we had to sit through, and where each of the assistant principals and the principal got up and they gave some sort of wannabe TED Talk about the culture at Thomas Nelson. One of the assistant principals got into the "we is greater than me." Your kid is going to be, and then up on the screen they had a slide of "Where's Waldo?" and this is what high school is going to look like the first day. Your kid's not the only one that's going to be experiencing this. It's the entire community. So you have to understand that even though this is your individual child, they're in this with the entire community of children or of kids. And then they flash up there the thing, "we is greater than me." The community is greater than the individual. That my husband was ready to walk out at that point. I made him sit through it though.
Yeah, that's communist. That's Communist Manifesto stuff.
Absolutely, and that wasn't even hiding it at that point. I mean, if you can't see through that is absolutely Marxist language, you can't see anything. There was a family in front of us that actually got up and left at that point. I don't know what they were thinking, or maybe they had something to do, but it was just kind of, timing was perfect that they just up and left right then and there. And then they go into talking, and the next thing is they have this acronym for leadership. I don't know all of the acronym, and I'm not going to pull up the website to try and tell you, but the one that stands out to me is "discipline is freedom." That doesn't sound communist at all. But they talked about how and I agree, self-discipline is important. I don't disagree with that, but it's not freedom, it's responsibility. Responsibility is freedom, because then you're in control. It's just the message is all skewed and weird. So yeah, we had to sit through these pseudo TED Talks, and then we went around to we're supposed to tour the high school. We're not given a schedule at all. The schedule has to be accessed online only, so we did not get a printout of a schedule. But when we had our individual, they call them family table ignite meetings, where you meet specifically with your child's, what would normally have been called a homeroom teacher is now the Care and Connect leader. That's what they're called. And the Care and Connect leader meets with your child every day for half an hour in the morning before school starts, or before the regular bell schedule starts. And they do different team building activities. The Care and Connect class is mixed grades. It's freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, all mixed in the same classroom. And again, they do team building activities. They do different they do different games with other houses, competitions and stuff occasionally. And sometimes they'll talk, sometimes they'll have whatever. But so we met with the Care and Connect leader, and he gave us a Thomas Nelson High School lexicon, because, you're going to have to learn this whole new language when you go to Thomas Nelson. So just to kind of touch on that, I'm looking at the form here, or the lexicon. We have a hashtag, fly closer to the sun. You'll have to read the story of Icarus, then follow it up with a synopsis from Icarus Deception by Seth Godin, one of our foundational principles that basically means rising above mediocrity and shooting for high expectations and high-reaching goals. Okay, so, Seth Godin is a business guru, and leadership guru. He does all these TED Talks and writes books about good leadership and standing out from the crowd, and that's fine, but I don't think it really applies in education. And if you've done any reading about Greek mythology, the story of Icarus did not end well for Icarus. He flew too close to the sun, and the wax melted off the wings that he was flying with, and he plummeted to his death. So I'm not sure that that's really something I want my kid following. Some other interesting language that they use is the answer. They end everything that they write with yes. So we get a letter about, we're going to, have our tailgate party, blah, 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 blah. The end of the letter is always yes. Because the answer to how is yes. We don't ask any questions. We don't do anything. We just say yes. If there's a problem, yes, we can solve it. Yes. The answer to how is yes. When my son came home, I'm like, the answer to how, if somebody's asking you, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Or the answer to how is always going to be why. Why are we doing this? So whenever he went to school this second week, I'm like, so Isaac, what's the answer to how? He says, the answer to how is why. Why are we doing this?
It's great.
So anyway, the language is all over the place, but it's funny because we're in the beginning of September now, and I ask him all kinds of questions. Of course, he's a typical teenager. How was school? Fine. You get those single word answers. He doesn't want to engage. But I'm like, okay, you've got to level with me here. What's it like? Do you all really talk like this during class? He's like, Mom, nobody talks like that. The teachers don't even do that stuff unless there's some kind of something going on, or somebody like a principal or assistant principal in the classroom with them. He says, but other than that, he says it's just like regular school. So it's kind of interesting. Like it seems like the teachers don't even buy into it unless somebody's watching. So I do feel a little better about that. It's still just it's a lot of propaganda.
See, that's an interesting observation that your son has made, because that's not singular. And he's right. He's 100% right. That the brainwashing that's actually taking place is the most rampant among the administrators when it comes to these outside programs that they implement. They're the ones that are swallowing it, hook, line, and sinker. And it's the vast majority of the teachers that know that it's total garbage and they want nothing to do with it. And then the closer and closer you get to a student, the more truth you're actually going to end up hearing. Because again, nobody can smell bullshit in a school environment quite like a student can.
Absolutely.
And I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. And I'm certain that the vast majority of the students are saying to themselves, what is going on here? What is this? And then again, the higher up you go, the teachers are shaking their heads and they're going, well, we know it's garbage, but whatever. And then you get up to the administration and they go, this is the greatest thing ever. I mean, it's a complete disconnect from reality. Talk a little bit about your other sons and the experience that they're having at their school.
Well, they went their first day of school. They had homework, which was, to me, is amazing. I'm absolutely 100% for homework and doing that extra bit at home and reinforcing what they learned. It also, the homework helps me gauge where they're at. So I used to, grudge having, them having to come home and go through the homework, but absolutely now that I've been on the other side of it where they had no homework at all, yes, I want to see homework. I want to see what they're doing. So homework, first day of school. Masking isn't strictly enforced. They have to, just because it's required by our state, and the Archdiocese has required it for Catholic schools. But while they're sitting, because their classroom sizes are so small, they're able to, be far apart from one another, and they take their masks off while they're sitting in their classroom. I'm not thrilled that they have to wear them, but I'm also relieved that it's not 100% of the time with no breaks. And then, so 3 weeks in, my second grader is coming home reading fluently, where he was not before. He was maybe reading a little bit above a first grade level, but now he's reading fluently. He's following his own directions on his homework worksheets, and all on his own, and completing his homework on his own. He started out kind of, it was a little bit rocky at first with spelling tests, but he got 100% on his spelling test last week, which is amazing. He's still struggling a little bit with some of the reading, but I have never felt better about school, especially with him. My sixth grader, he's doing fantastic. He's actually immediately starting school. They started getting into, catching up on what they'd missed. He's starting in pre-algebra and the Spanish settlement of America. So, things that he had absolutely missed out on last year in fifth grade. But they're able to, catch him up on that as well. And he's doing very well also. They seem to really, though, these two kids and any kids at that age really thrive in structure. And the fact that my second grader thinks that his teacher, is still mean, but he's learning something. She's mean because she's strict, and she's not, he tends to kind of slack off and get a little lazy, and she will not let him get away with that. And it's fantastic to have somebody that'll stay on top of kids and make sure they're learning what they need to learn. We actually had his parent-teacher conference last night, and she was very nice, and he does tend to wander and get distracted, but we're working on it, she said. So she seemed to be very confident that he'd get caught up, and I couldn't be happier with the direction that's headed. So yeah, I'm very thrilled.
That's great. Do you see the mask wearing? This is kind of a broad question, I suppose, but do you see the mask wearing going away?
Not in the public schools. I think, well, it was legislatively turned down. The governor cannot mandate masks it was passed in the legislature. The Supreme Court, Kentucky Supreme Court, upheld it. But he used the back door with the Kentucky Board of Education and had them pass a 270-day school-wide mask mandate. I don't think it's going away, at least not here, not for now, not in public school for sure. It may go away. The diocese continues to have each individual school district look at their numbers. If the numbers go down, the masks are allowed to go away. So it just depends as far as the Catholic schools are concerned, on where COVID numbers are. As far as now, my brother, he has children in Cleveland, or he lives in Cleveland. His children go to a private Christian school, and they are the only district up there, only school up there that does not require masks, and will not require them. If the family feels uncomfortable and they want their children to wear a mask, then they're more than welcome to do that, but nobody has. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Cleveland is a very liberal, as far as the government is concerned, a liberal area. And so to find a Christian school up there that doesn't require them, and that's not why he's sending them there. He's sending them there because it's a fantastic education. But they don't require it up there. So I think there are districts and there are private schools that are not going to require it. But as far as public school goes, I don't see it going away. I think it's going to be left up to private schools to choose for themselves.
And if they had any idea how the human body actually worked, they would know that it has nothing to do with coughing or sneezing on someone. it really is a proximity thing. That if an individual is ill and they have a disrupted immune system, and quote unquote, and they're around someone who is healthy, that healthy person will be fine 9 times plus out of 10. It's just so sad how the entire medical industry has misled so many people for so many decades, only to if not a century plus, and then it's led to this point where they're putting masks on children, thinking that that's stopping something when in fact it's making things worse.
Well, and even if it was anything to do respiratory or spread through aerosolized virus particles, you don't put up a chain link fence to stop mosquitoes from getting in your house. Yeah. So even by their logic, it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, it's false in more than one angle.
Right.
Yeah. Let me play this from your local news outlet and sort of introduce this first, if you can, for everybody listening, because you clearly got an investigative reporter involved who works with the local news to go after the superintendent and the entire program, of course, that you've been highlighting on the podcast here for quite some time, practically almost a year now. We're coming up on it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I haven't said this publicly, and I should probably, and I will, and I mean it. It's been an absolute honor talking with you this entire time. You've educated myself and countless other individuals on what's going on at the ground level within your district. You have a keen eye for this kind of stuff, and it's been an absolute honor. And that's not a goodbye or anything. It's I mean, you're welcome. You're welcome back anytime. And definitely keep us informed as to what's going on. But go ahead and introduce this video and let people know how this all got started with this local reporter.
Well, we've been struggling since the superintendent gave his initial proposal for the 6th grade through 12th grade community campus merger, is what he calls it, where we would take all the individual middle schools throughout our district and combine them into the 2 high schools that we have here, making it 1 or 2 campuses with grades 6 through 12 all under one roof. We've had a lot of backlash, a lot of parents obviously very concerned about what's happening, the potential dangers that would be for middle schoolers attending school with, almost adults, 17, 18-year-olds. And so there's a lot of outcry. Bloomfield, of course, has had the biggest voice in all of this because it's going to close a middle school, which it's going to impact their community in a very, very big way. So, a lot of outcry there. Of course, you have the smaller schools that really, parents aren't really saying anything because they believe their kids are getting robbed of opportunities. And to a degree, yes, I believe that. But also with that, you have to understand and you have to have seen from the very beginning with these smaller schools, it's a lack of leadership. If you have a good leader in these small schools, you will have the same opportunities for your child that they have at the bigger schools, because that leader is going to make it happen. They're going to do everything. They have all the resources they need to succeed. And so again, it's with the smaller schools, I'm going to say that from my perspective, it's just lack of leadership. Parents don't see it though, because they haven't seen this from this close of a view, or this side of a view, the inside view. So anyway, so the 6 through 12 merger was going to happen. It's really divided the county. And a lot of parents, were looking to the media to help, voice the way we see it. Because, when Les Bradley started talking about this, he had community meetings with each of the community schools that were going to be impacted. And it started out with question and answer segments, and parents would get up there and they'd voice their concerns. And Bloomfield was very, very vocal. Some of them got belligerent. and yelled and shouted, and rightfully so. I mean, it's going to close their school. And then as time went on, he learned and adapted his meetings, and it turned into a more controlled thing on his end, where he can control the narrative. So people felt like their voices really weren't heard, and going to the local media, again, our voices weren't heard. They wouldn't really publish what was going on. They wouldn't really publish our viewpoints or what we had found. I know I had been to them, and at some point, the editor of our local paper had said something about my, not naming me directly, but crazy communist plots to take over school and education is what he mentioned in one of his columns. So anyway, we really, and then then you have the local radio station, which is just an abomination of journalism, where they basically feed our superintendent's ego. They don't ask hard questions. And then you could submit your questions to the local radio station to read. And like I did, I had to make sure I put in my question that I submitted, do not change the wording. Read this word for word. Because he changed the wording of a lot of the questions. He wouldn't ask the hard questions. He didn't want to ask the hard questions. So we couldn't rely on local media. And I guess enough parents had reached out to WHAS 11. Well, we reached out to all of the bigger news stations in our area. But Shay McAllister was the one that we were told would probably be willing to look into it more than anybody else. So a lot of parents just kept reaching out. And finally she's like, all right, well, there must be something here. So she reached out and sent out a post on the Save Our Schools Facebook page. If anyone wants to speak about this, here's my email. So several of us emailed her, and one parent in particular had started to organize all of us a lot of the vocal parents getting together and interviewing at one time. And she ended up getting stuck in Florida. So, and you've had her on your show, Vanessa Linton. She got stuck in Florida. Her flight was delayed. So I ended up having to take over and hosted it at my house, and I think there was 7 of us total, interviewed by Shay. She came in and spoke to us and learned all about this. Well, in the meantime, she had been trying to reach out to Wes Bradley, and he would not speak to her. He wouldn't do an interview. He wouldn't answer her questions via email. He gave a very generic statement about wanting to make sure all of Nelson County students succeed or whatever. And so that's where this story came from.
And that right there too, which people are going to hear it in this audio clip, but that right there is a huge red flag. If a superintendent isn't talking to anybody and won't answer the most basic of questions over email of all places, they have everything to hide.
And it's funny you say that, because this morning, and we talk all the time about how kids see through all the bullcrap. My kids were watching it this morning before school, and my 11-year-old, he's very outspoken. He's my most kid. The first thing he says after watching, he's like, "Well, he wouldn't answer any questions. Doesn't that mean he's hiding something?" I didn't say a word to them, not a word about it. I'm just like, they knew I was going to be on. And on the news, and of course it came on at 11 o'clock last night. They were in bed, so they wanted to watch it this morning. And that was the first thing out of my 11-year-old's mouth was, he's hiding something. He gets it. He's 11 and he gets it.
Students tend to, which is great.
Yeah.
See, yeah. And this right here is a larger picture as well, which is the pacification of the young American mind. I mean, they want to know the truth. They don't want to be misled. They don't want to be lied to. And when you tell them they've been misled and lied to, they'll start asking a lot of questions. And again, it creeps into so many other avenues with the false curriculum that's being taught and 1,000 other things. But that right there is awesome. To be raising someone who's so inquisitive like that's a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, it can be the education system itself that just destroys that. But
yeah, absolutely. And I could totally see that happening as they get older. They become more afraid to ask questions. They become more afraid of authority. And, I absolutely don't want that for my children. They have nothing to fear. And yes, they do pacify them. And it does, you can absolutely see it. If your kids have been in education, you can see incremental, just starting to fall in line. And it's just like the, what is that? Is it Pink Floyd, The Wall? Yes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely just like that. Over time, that's just what it becomes.
Let me go ahead and play this here and, again, get your reaction, and everybody can, of course, hear this also.
Facing a big controversy, leaders in the Nelson County School District have proposed a new vision for the district's future. It includes merging the district's middle and high schools at 2 campuses, and opinions on its purpose are mixed. Parents started calling me last month asking me to look into it. Tonight, my report comes from a county divided. Looking back through Nelson County history, controversy surrounding schools is nothing new.
People talk about history. History does repeat itself.
Former Bardstown mayor and Nelson County historian Dixie Hibbs points to a proposal from the 1960s.
In 1962, Bloomfield had a high school. State Education Board was telling us you've got to consolidate their high schools. And Bloomfield said, no, we're not. We're going to fight you to the end.
Parents in Bloomfield felt cheated. They wanted their children's school to be close to home, but the move would put Bloomfield kids in Bardstown, about 13 miles away.
I think they felt like they've lost control of everything.
Now, 50 years later, for some, that familiar feeling has returned.
It's concern, it is fear. None of it has really made any sense to any of us. There's just so many things that can go wrong with it.
The issue was first proposed in April of this year. Superintendent Wes Bradley presented at a Nelson County Board of Education special meeting. He called it a conversation starter, and it was the first time parents, students, and staff heard his idea to combine the district's middle and high schools into 2 buildings called community campuses. Many parents applaud the plan, writing in emails, "I am one of the parents who are for change. I have come to the conclusion I want more for my son and all children." Another parent told me she believed it would be a game changer for the children in the smaller schools. Despite multiple requests, those parents wouldn't talk to me on camera. But another side,
Superintendent Bradley is definitely an excellent salesman. I'm not sure how much of an educator he is.
was eager to speak out.
I don't feel that any of the questions that we have asked have been honestly answered.
Nicole Milburn lives in Bloomfield. She has 3 children in the district. The middle school in her town is the one that would close. She says she's worried about what will happen to the building and the town left behind.
And I also feel that if this merger does go into place, it is not only going to affect our children and what they're going to have to go through, but it's also going to affect the entire community, our businesses. Bloomfield will become a ghost town.
Another parent,
Those all students are not treated fairly in this district.
says his concern is for his son, a special needs child who he claims was left out of a plan built on high-achieving
Public
students.
school, you can't pick and choose which children you want to educate. And I think that's what's happened with Nelson County School.
Staff have also raised concerns. No current teachers would speak to us on camera, but a retired educator volunteered to be their voice.
My colleagues, they could not have their own opinion. It was brought to them pretty suddenly, and I feel like they feel helpless.
She says many educators have decided to leave the district in response to plans for the merger and the superintendent's change in curriculum, which he says aligns with the overall, quote, vision for the district. We filed an open records request looking into staffing changes. According to data provided by the district, 59 staff members resigned during the 2020-2021 school year compared to just 12 the year before. Some resignations included letters describing the reason for the decision. One teacher wrote, "It is my hope that Nelson County schools will start to listen to the highly qualified teachers they have in their schools and will start to value their opinions." But it isn't only staff deciding to leave. Parents are also pulling their children.
For me, it's not about the merger. For me, it's about what is fundamentally wrong with education in Nelson County. The rigor and the academic achievement and curricular structure is not being taken seriously in Nelson County.
Vanessa Hurst says she withdrew her children from Nelson County schools because she felt they were spending too much time on projects that did not align with core curriculum, a change put in place when Wes Bradley took over as superintendent. During a final meeting with her fifth grader's teacher, Hurst says it became clear just how behind the child was.
But the teacher afterwards slipped me a Post-it note with all the things that he was lacking for this year, knowing that we were going to a different school this coming year, and I was going to have to tutor my own son at home over the summer to catch up to where he was supposed to be.
When you ask students about the plans for the district, they say they see teacher concern and it rubs off.
They're not taking former teachers' thoughts. The current teachers that work with them can't speak their opinions.
Rosalie Brown took it upon herself to bring her concerns to the superintendent at a school board meeting.
He said, "That's a great question," and went on from there, asked for the next person. I felt like he thought I was incompetent and didn't think that I was being serious and knew what I was talking about.
So what's at the heart of this vision? What's behind the creator's idea, and why is it the best choice for the district's children? We went to the source, the superintendent, to ask some of these questions that staff and parents tell us haven't been answered. Superintendent Wes Bradley wouldn't answer us in emails or during a phone call. He wouldn't agree to meet, but instead sent this statement, which reads in part, "We are excited to continue to expand learning opportunities for students across Nelson County." The short statement didn't answer any of our questions, so we went to a school board meeting to ask him in person.
I'm Shay McAllister with WHS 11.
Hi, Shay.
Hi, good to see you. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the planning, the vision.
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'll share my statement with you on email.
Well, would you just tell us why you think it's in the best interest of the kids?
Bradley would not answer our questions or questions asked by parents during the public comment session. Instead, he offered up a document.
Why do you think that this will help the children of Nelson County?
He sent the 2-page infographic to my email,
Asked for.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister.
and without any answers, the impromptu interview was done. So what will this chapter look like?
50 years from now,
Written into the history of Nelson County.
the people will look back and say, "Man, that was quite a decision they made there. I know people didn't like it, but look where we are."
Dixie Hibbs hopes it's a happy ending after all. The plan to merge the schools still has a ways to go, currently on step 3 of 8. If you have a story you'd like the Focus team to look into, you can contact us at focus@whas11.com.
What's interesting, Vanessa, about that, which, by the way, again, great job with that, is that, and I agree with you, that it's worse than the merger. And as we've brought up on this podcast on a number of occasions now over the last year or so, that the problems are deeper. It's burning the candle at both ends. It's wrecking the buildings from the outside in, but it's also destroying them from the inside out with a lack of actual curriculum. And I think, again, that if a person is watching that, just like your son, and just like the student who is inside of the video itself, hit the nail right on the head, that it's evident to even children that there's a problem here. And again, when you have I'm repeating myself here, but again, when you have a superintendent that doesn't want to answer the most basic questions, it's because they can't, because there are no answers.
Right. Or he knows the answers are going to send up red flags for people that are still sleeping.
Right.
Or both.
Right. That he might have orders, that he's following orders, or that there's a much larger scheme here at play, which of course we've discussed numerous times. But there you go. I think this, again, what this is doing, and what model you've clearly set forth here is a very good one. And that's, while they claim that they have their media outlets, and I'm talking about the enemy, so to speak, and they're doing what they're doing, they continue to underestimate the power of the individual American and the collective as well. And that there are podcasts out there that can help expose this. There are excellent minds out there that can help expose this. There are parents that want to get involved. Again, it's very sad, of course, but we know why, as to why the teachers don't want to say anything, because Wes Bradley has a history of cutting them loose. if they so much as breathe in the wrong direction. And then, of course, you just keep working on it and you keep staying on it. And then you find a media outlet that's willing to expose even, part of the bigger picture. But again, while the special segment there was focused a lot on the merger, there are bigger issues. And I think anybody watching that would have to understand that fully.
Absolutely. So, and it's kind of interesting. I thought it was interesting that they reached out to Dixie Hibbs, who's our resident county historian. She's written several history books. She was the mayor of Bardstown. But Dixie at the end there says that history repeats itself, or maybe it's in the beginning. But anyway, she said history repeats itself. Well, yes and no, because history is not a living, breathing thing. People repeat history because we don't learn from it. So, we didn't learn anything from Bloomfield leaving, the high school leaving Bloomfield. Obviously, that took those children away from that town, that took business away from that town. You have sports, and I know you're not a proponent of school sports, but it does bring business into a remote town like Bloomfield, and it does bring that, people that wouldn't normally come to New Haven, to the south end of Nelson County. It brings people into that community, and and then they see, oh, hey, there's a place I could get tires. I bet there's a better price than Walmart, or better service than Walmart, and it really does. It helps everybody out to have a school in your community. That's part of having a town is a school. So you take that away, you take those students away, and you're going to take the heart of that town. And that's really what's at stake here. It's also taking away an identity. There's an identity, if you're not from here, you don't really understand. It's hard to understand the identity of being from New Haven, or the identity of being from Bloomfield or Chaplin or Boston. But there really is a pride that goes with it, to say I was born and raised in New Haven, or I was born and raised in Bloomfield. And, with that, there's this persona, where Bloomfield is the ag community, hardworking individuals. They get up before the sun comes up. They wake up the rooster. You go work out in the farm, at the farm. And you have, like New Haven is the river town, we're all about partying on the river and having a good time. That's the persona. And also hardworking individuals that work in the distilleries, and Boston, each community has this identity that's going to be lost if these students get meshed together in one location. And I know that's kind of maybe a little selfish to look at it that way, or you can't say it's going to be completely lost because the parents are still there, but it does. I've seen it happen in LaRue County. I've watched, or I've researched the schools. They all consolidated. Of course, it's a much smaller county, so consolidation only made sense. But you did lose that identity of the Magnolia. There's a town, Magnolia, Buffalo, and Mount Sherman, and they all eventually lost this identity, and it morphed into something different. It's more centralized now, and and that's fine. But I think it's also something important to look at is keeping that individual identity of where you're from, and I think that's a lot of what people are afraid of too. But it also, what does that turn into? And whose identity and culture are you taking on? Are we taking on something that we created together? Are we unified in this as a county, or are we taking on what Wes Bradley thinks we need to have as a community, our identity, our culture?
Oh yes,
whose culture is it?
100%. It's divide and conquer, no doubt. You've definitely teamed up with a lot of great Americans who know what's going on, and they've had enough, and they can see through it, and they see what's going on. And it really is a fantastic thing, I think, to watch what the individual can do and what the collective can do when they all get on the same page about something that drives everybody nuts.
Keep paying attention. Everybody just needs to pay attention. If you have kids in public school and if you're determined to stay in public school for whatever reason, then stay on top of it. You make sure you see what your kids are working on. If they're not bringing home homework, you request to look at their work, and if they don't have, if there's no curriculum for you to request, then, you start asking, well, what's the teachers, what are you planning to look at over the next couple of weeks? Or, just stay on top of it and pay attention to what they're doing. That's vital. Yeah.
Cool.
And it's definitely, I think it's what woken up a lot of people. You have a lot of Kentucky fans, I've noticed.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I love it, and I hope they keep listening and paying attention to stuff. And again, I fully understand that my takes on particular things can sound a little brash at times or a little harsh. Like the sports stuff, for example. I'm not against sports.
No, I know it's school sanctioned.
Yeah, think of I'll give you a perfect example. Think of your ATC center. Why can't there be a sports center that's just like that? Why is it that it has to be associated with the actual school building where they're supposed to be, again, learning how to read, write, do whatever? Because, again, if they were separated, it's not like business would be lost or anything. I think it would be quite the opposite. I think they might actually receive a little more attention.
Well, and I'm beginning to understand that direction more, looking into other options for Isaac, because he loves baseball, loves basketball. Sports are his life right now. Sports and fishing. That's all he wants to do. And so if we ended up homeschooling, the Kentucky High School Athletic Association has the rules that homeschoolers cannot join a team. Cannot.
That's
you
awful.
You have to be registered at a high school, and you have to play for that high school. You cannot. There's no other option. There's no option for homeschoolers unless we drove all the way to Louisville, 50 miles away, to join a homeschool baseball league. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And then the rec leagues. There used to be a middle school rec league in Bardstown, and they got rid of it. You have to now join your local school rec league, which there are school rec leagues, and they do allow private schools to join, and they also allow homeschoolers to join the rec league, but they cannot play if they're homeschooled for the school. They cannot play the actual Kentucky High School Athletic Association. So, that's part of why he does not want to homeschool. That's definitely playing a part in it. But, and like I said, if I chose, or if me and my husband chose to pull him out without him being on board 100%, it's just going to create resentment that is not worth it. So it's really tough, and it's awful. It really does. It really sucks for homeschool kids that are serious about sports. It's not fair. And really there should be like an ATC for sports. And it should be outside of school.
For everybody.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, again, that's the separation, I think, that would be so valuable to so many, because also you wouldn't have to hook it to grades. I mean, we know that when we were growing up, you couldn't play a sport if your grade point average was below this, or if you were getting D's or F's, you couldn't play the sport, allegedly, even though they would let some of the more athletic people who were
let them slide, precisely.
Yeah, right. They were great at the sport, but they couldn't write their own name on a piece of paper. It takes out all of that. It takes out all of that immorality and all of that likelihood for fraud. And it just allows people to just play a game and have fun doing it and get some exercise. And hey, look, if a scout wants to come over and see that they're playing great, maybe they get to play at the college level. I mean, it interferes in so many other things. But yeah.
Speaking of sports, did you see where Belichick had said that? They were talking about the amount of players that were getting COVID on the Patriots during their training, and he had said, "I'm seeing more vaccinated players getting sick, so you all need to pay attention to that."
Yes.
Did you see that?
I did. And it's not surprising.
Right. I mean, that's not surprising, but the fact that he said it.
Right. I'm glad he said it, because it's going to
Yeah.
be, it's going to become harder and harder to hide.
Mhm.
And you heard me bring it up in previous episodes, I think, but schools are already closing, and they're already closed right now.
I still get the alerts for New Haven School. They've had 5 alerts sent out that they've had a COVID case in the school and they had to quarantine. So every time one of those COVID cases, there's probably 12 to 15 people that were in close contact with that student or teacher that now have to quarantine with them. So, they're probably operating at a 1/3 of their population down.
And this was an interesting phone call I got this morning. And this it of course ties in with everything that we're talking about right now. But I had an old friend of mine who was a mother of a daughter who I taught, who was a student in my health classes when I taught middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a guest speaker in my classes. She was a nurse, and she was an ex-drug addict and alcoholic, and an excellent human being. And she turned her life around, and she became a registered nurse, and then she had her criminal record completely wiped clean, and everything was 100% fantastic. But it's people like her that I've always thought about, who are in the health professions, and the people that I've interacted with. And I've thought to myself, I wonder if they got the jabs. I wonder if they actually did their due diligence on this, or if they just sort of acquiesced because, again, when you're in the military or the health professions and they say it's time for you to take your shot, you just line up and you take it.
Right.
And she texted me this morning as I was eating breakfast, and she said, do you know that you've gone viral? And she sends me 2 TikTok videos of people making fun of what I said in that board meeting. And then one of them is wearing scrubs, and he's making fun of the fact that I'm not a medical doctor, but he doesn't refute anything that I say.
Right.
He doesn't say you can't breastfeed, you can't donate blood plasma, it's the equivalent of HIV, blah, blah, blah. And it compromises your immune system. He doesn't do any of that. He just tries to make fun of me for me claiming that I was some medical doctor from Oxford, which is absurd. And we've been over that. But
yeah.
But she's so open-minded and such a bright human being. I called her. I said, "Can we talk? Because I can't text all of this information to you." And she says, "Yeah." And I called her, and she immediately starts asking questions. What can we do about this? Is there a way to get rid of this? Is there a way to ensure that, I don't get sick? Now, she's a God-loving, Bible-reading human being.
Mm-hmm.
And she even brought up the biblical aspect of all of this. And she said, are we talking about the end of days? And I went, wow. I said, well, I hope not. I said, I certainly hope not. I said, there's a lot of talk of there being an antidote to the jabs. There's a lot of things that people can do, again, boost their so-called immune systems and do whatever they can to stay healthy. But I said, the problem is that when the body fills up with toxic cells, you slough it off, and that's called a common cold. It's a natural immune response. The problem is that when that happens, the body's not going to it's not going to be able to get rid of the toxic cells the way that it would normally be able to get rid of them.
Right.
And she has connections, and I told her about ivermectin and this other stuff, and she goes, oh yeah, 100%. She goes, I know a doctor who can hook me up with that instantly. And I was like, well, there you go. It's that kind of stuff that, again, if people just would have done their due diligence beforehand, they wouldn't have to do it now after the fact. I'm hopeful that this is going to not hurt as many people as it might, and I'm not trying to be doom and gloom about it as much as I can. But for somebody to say anything, like what I said isn't happening or hasn't already happened. The fact is it already has happened, and it is happening. Countless schools all over the United States are already closed. Countless teachers are already sick, and yeah, it doesn't make me happy.
No.
I'm not a monster.
That's not something anybody would be proud of. Hey, I was right. Look at me. No.
Yeah,
but
that's not the motive. Never has been.
It is what people need to hear. obviously, that I don't know. It's just, I'm really coming around to the shock and awe approach to it is really what people need to hear, because it makes them think. The safe approach, the tiptoeing around feelings about people who are with people who are vaccinated, and it's just not working. They're not listening.
Yeah, and as you know, I mean, again, it was the gleeful nature of these parents just wanting to jab their children. I thought to myself, my God in heaven.
Yeah. I mean, look how well that the Gardasil thing turned out.
No
Did
kidding.
you know that they went through 10?
Yeah, go ahead.
10 different formulas before they, got it right and weren't killing girls. They were giving them Guillain-Barré syndrome.
And they still haven't gotten it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They pulled it 10 times. People didn't know that. It wasn't publicized, but they had to pull it 10 times and come up with a new formula or whatever. A new vaccine. Amazing. Yeah, anyone could look it up. It's Gardasil 10 now. That means they've gone through the cycle 10 times, trying to perfect it. How many more times? How many more girls are going to and boys too? Because now they recommend it for young men. How many more lives have to be destroyed before we realize that this is a toxic thing? It's killing people, or maiming them, or disabling them permanently.
Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, some people, even when they find out the hard way, they still haven't found out.
Right.
I came across another video just yesterday. A guy had to have his leg amputated. I believe he's somewhere in Europe. Had to have his leg amputated because of blood clots after taking the shots, and then he's posing for pictures with his prosthetic leg, and he's saying, "I'm getting back to life. It's a little different, but don't let this discourage you from getting the shots." And I'm saying to myself, bro, you lost your leg. I mean, please. It's like the cases of myocarditis. If a child has an inflamed heart and damage to their heart, that's permanent. There's just way too much soft talk around permanent heart damage.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you can't repair that. It's permanent. They've taken a healthy 15-year-old heart and they've basically made it an 80-year-old heart now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful. It's just awful. But the very people screaming misinformation, those are the very people providing the misinformation.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.